I tell this story all the time. My mother doesn't like it, and my father is not here to refute it, so I can say anything I want. But my father was very traditional in his values and thought that
Silvera, and you're watching Westside JA. My guest today is Dr. Claudine Lewis, a cardiologist here in Montego Bay. Now, Dr. Lewis was born right here in the parish of St. James. She attended Mount Alvernia High School. She went to the University of the West Indies, and shortly after, she went to Canada, where she specialized in her area as a cardiologist. She could have stayed away from Jamaica, but she opted to return to Jamaica to support her countrymen and women. She is one of Jamaica's most noted heart specialists.
Is that so?
Yes, and I'm very, very proud of her because she and I went to the same school, Mount Alvernia. She's
class of 89.
Yes, far younger than I am, but a Mount Alvernia High School girl. Dr. Lewis, I am so proud of you. I've watched your growth.
Thank you, Janet.
If I can say so myself.
Thank you. I remember meeting you for the first time when I came back to Jamaica in 2008.
Oh my God.
I think it was at an event and you're like, who is this lady?
Yes. And then I would see you at my favorite restaurant in the mornings.
Pelican.
The Pelican. The Pelican is my favorite restaurant. I must say that from now. Oh my God, I hope this doesn't get me into trouble in the long run. But anyway, that's my favorite restaurant. My favorite Jamaican restaurant.
Should we have been calling out any names?
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine. Dr. Lewis, you came from a very humble background. Let's talk about where you're coming from to where you are today.
All right. So I grew up in Dumfries in St. James, and I grew up in a two-parent household. These days, that's not so common, and I think it's one of the things that really I value. And a two-parent household where my father, bossy man, bossy poor man, he had a little shop, and you would think that this shop was the biggest haberdashery or something around, it was a little snack shop really, and he was very tall, so they used to call him Mas Longers. And so he had a shop in Dumfries Square, and the little shop in the daytime himself shave ice and snow cone, right?
I remember snow cone.
And shave ice and snacks, cheese tricks and those things, and in the evening it would be a little rum bar for the older people. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, which, I tell this story all the time. My mother doesn't like it, and my father is not here to refute it, so I can say anything I want. But my father was very traditional in his values and thought that my mother should not work. And so even though he did not have the income to be, the sole breadwinner, that was how he wanted his family dynamic to be. But my mother used to hide and work. So we used to call it hide and walk, right? So we as children knew that. So, she would prepare his meals, him sit down and have him breakfast, and that's how traditional our household was. He would be served, table set and everything. As a child, I would sit with him because I was the youngest one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would sit with him and we watch cartoons in the morning, have breakfast, and then he would go off to work. And then Mama would leave and go to work.
What kind of work was she doing?
She was actually doing laundry for some people in the community. So there were a couple families that she worked for doing their laundry. But she would make sure she's back before Papa come home in the evening. So that was how I grew up, in Dumfries. We had... back in those days, when I think about it, I feel like our current generation of children are robbed. Everybody's on their tablets and all of these things. But back in those days, we used to have what we call go a grung, and every Saturday you have to go a grung.
So they were small farmers as well.
Yes, so
if you have
everybody had their little plot, and they had their little plot not at our home where we live, but a little distance away where we had to walk there. But that was part of growing up. On a Saturday, whatever I was doing when I was at Mount Alvernia, sometimes we may have lessons, we might have to go to the library or whatever, but before I could do any of those things, I have to go a grung. And when I go a grung, I had to, weed. I remember just weeding out because that was maintaining. That was our job as children.
Right.
So it helped to maintain the ground. So,
How did that mold you into who you are today? Do you believe that is what prepared you for who you are today?
I think in some ways, all of our experiences in life prepare us for where we are currently. And
some of us become failures, and some of us become successes. Mark you, it depends on how you measure success.
Exactly.
Right. But some of us become people in a community that make significant contributions, and that is what you have become.
I think it taught me the value of hard work. And also humility,
Yes.
It's some people in my class would scoff at that kind of thing, or even they scoffed at me coming from Dumfries. I remember this girl, and it was so funny. It was at Mount Alvernia, and she's from Mount Horeb, and Mount Horeb is as country as Dumfries. And she would make fun of me coming from Dumfries, and I'm just like, lady, why do you think that Mount Horeb is any more or any less country than Dumfries?
May I ask a question? What about Dumfries? Why she would laugh at Dumfries?
I do not know, but I remember her very, very, very vividly because the people who taunted you and made fun of you in high school, you don't forget them.
No.
Yes, she's on my Facebook.
So, some time ago, I did an interview with you, and I know you're not uncomfortable talking about it because we spoke about it in an article that we did, where you had one pair of shoes, and if rain fall, you had to remove that pair of shoes and walk barefoot to go home.
Please do not let my mother see this because she will deny it as well, and Papa is not here to refute it. So here's the thing, the same thing about, their different values. So Papa is a very proud man. So if it's raining, it doesn't matter with the one pair of shoes, I must keep on the shoes. Mama know, if I wear the shoes in the water and the shoes mash up, I'll get lick. So I had to walk past Papa's shop to go home. So I would put on the shoes when we almost reach a Papa's shop. Go in a Papa's shop, greet Papa and everything. As me leave Papa's shop, I take off his shoes and walk home barefoot because if I go in the shoes and the shoes wet up, Mama go beat me, right? So, you have to know how to do the thing, right?
Listen to me, if you make me cry, you're not going to like it.
You have to know how to do the thing.
Right.
Yes. So those things, you learn how to take care of things.
So your life, I would say, was very, very exciting.
Exciting and simple. I remember sharing with one of my friends who grew up between Portland and Kingston, and in a more middle class setting than my working class setting, and I talk about some of these things, and she would actually say she doesn't believe me, like I'm making up a story, because when I told her that I went to Hamden Primary School, and I went to Dumfries Primary for a year. Mama didn't like it. She didn't think that, anyway, she didn't like it. She thought that Hamden, which is where she went, was a better primary school. The results were better for those times it was common entrance.
Right.
And so she transferred me to Hamden at second grade. And to get to the school, you had to walk through this little bamboo grove. Not as extensive as Holland bamboo. And one of the things we used to do when the pencils were finishing is we would take the pencil point and put it in the bamboo and make pencils. So nothing would go to waste. Have you never heard of this?
I have never ever heard of this.
Nothing would go to waste.
Oh,
so we used to have a little bamboo pencil. Because when the pencil had done, I had upon a little nubbin, take out the lead and put in them time. You remember the big pen where you press the fancy pen? Everybody at school think them fancy. We did have that long time with bamboo.
Wow. So let's leave the childhood days and get to adulthood now. But before, when did you realize that you wanted to enter the field of medicine? And
so we have to go back to childhood.
And how challenging was that?
We have to go back to childhood
Let's
because
go
it did
right
not start
back
when I was an adult. My first memory of wanting to be a cardiologist, or I knew I wanted to be a heart doctor. I wanted to be a heart surgeon, actually. I had a childhood friend who passed away when we were teenagers. She was about 19 or 20. And she, looking back, I don't know exactly what her diagnosis was. I just remember that she was in and out of Cornwall Regional Hospital, Children's Ward, very often, and going to visit. And I have this, the other day we were talking about how young do your memories go back to? We're reading this book with this woman who was recollecting from she was 2 years old, and we're debating whether or not you could really have memories that go back to when you were 2. I can't say how old I was at that time. I may have been around 5 or 6, but I remember writing this time we used to live in a board house, and I wrote on the wall of the house, I want to be a doctor. I think that was probably, this is way before vision boards became trendy and all these things. But they talk about visualizing things, and I remember Mama came and said, I would have beat you for right on the wall, but you say you want me doctor. Because say a charcoal me use right for the wall, So anyway, so that was where it started, and went to Mount Alvernia. Did not do that well at Mount Alvernia as people would think, and it's one of the things that when I'm asked to do motivational speaking is I tell people that where you start is not necessarily where you finish, and how you start is not necessarily how you finish, because people would think that as a doctor maybe I got 8 1s and how many A's and all these things. I took 8 subjects. My subjects, and again, there's another bit of controversy with Mama because she come and change my subject them. She claims they're not no go so the story them. But anyway, 8 subjects. I was fanatic about languages, so I chose Spanish and French, and I also chose physics because at the time physics was and still is a requirement to get into medical school. But Mama was more practical, as I said, and even though Papa said, "No, man, we can't send you to medical school," Mama was like, "Where are we going to get the money from?" So she said, "You know what? If you do like secretarial subjects, you can go to Duff's, do a 1-year certificate program, and you can get a job." And those days when you see secretarial leave Dumfries, I go to work in the nice shoes and them little bubble skirts. That is what Mama was just like, "Oh, that you need to do." Papa was just like, "She go be a doctor. What are you telling her about this?" So I had my little subjects chosen, and Mama come to the school and change them. She said, "You can keep the bio and the chemistry," but I ended up doing typewriting, accounting. And I can tell you something, do not make her see this, because she will say, "I lie, me tell she did not do any such thing." But I would not have chosen typewriting for myself. So I did typewriting, and accounting and computer studies. And I will say of the three, I actually, all of them, you talk about how what you do prepare you. Right now, everything is all electronic. I'm doing electronic medical records. I am savvy with computers because I did computer studies. And when I'm doing my notes on the computer, I don't write notes anymore. I can type at
Because you type fast.
I don't need to look at the keyboard ASDF because even though I did fail typewriting though, who fails typewriting?
Nobody does that. Nobody fails typewriting.
Claudine Lewis failed typewriting.
Because you were meant to be a doctor.
Yes, I failed
That's
typewriting.
exactly what it is.
So that was a little hurdle. Then I went to the community college, Montego Bay Community College. The teaching was good for some teachers didn't show up, and I spoke to Papa about it. We happened to have been very fortunate in that Papa's sister was a principal at Hampton. And so we went and spoke with her and asked if we could get me transferred to Hampton for sixth form. So I got accepted there. I had to repeat lower sixth. And that really prepared me because I got really good grades in A levels, even though, I had to repeat biology. I got a 3, which at the time was not a pass.
Not acceptable.
Right. And then I did it over, got a 1, ended up doing physics, did physics on my own. I never went to any physics class.
Taught yourself physics?
Yes. I remember the first time I set up an electrical circuit was in the actual exam. So I would read how to set up circuits, all the practical stuff, because I was just doing it on my own. So I was studying physics while I was doing my A levels. I was doing CXC physics on my own. So the first time I actually set up a circuit was in the exam. So went while I was at Hampton, thought about law, thought about communications, media and communications, and then I was like, no, medicine is it for sure. And then, I didn't get into medical school directly. Even though my grades were, I think I got 2 B's or something like that in A levels and a C, it was not enough. So I ended up going to natural sciences for a year. Then I got grades that were good enough to accept me into medicine. But before that, I had a little hiatus. Guess where?
Where? You have been watching West Side JA. We'll be right back.
All memorable moments include delicious food. Good food can transform the ordinary into extraordinary. We welcome more good times together, more memories we won't forget.
Rainforests always I make delicious moments.
But before that, I had a little hiatus. Guess where?
Where?
In hospitality.
Oh, yes, I forgot you worked at Breezes.
No. Before it was even Breezes. So.
Where you went?
It was Jamaica.
Oh,
did you not know?
It wasn't Breezes. It was. But
the original.
Right, the original name
right.
was Jamaica.
Right.
But you,
so
okay,
even
fine.
before Breezes, so I remember working at Jamaica as an entertainment coordinator.
Then you can dance and sing?
Dance and sing, and I can do "Welcome to Jamaica. It's so nice." You have to say it twice, because that's how we had to do it.
Those were the days.
Yes,
I love it.
So and then got into medicine, and that was where I really shone or had my shine, because that was where I was meant to be. The person who never got the 9 1s and whatever, I was actually top of my class for the first 2 years.
Wow.
So I won, the preclinical medal, and that was something else. Like I was just into it. And I was working while going to school because...
So you had to pay your way in some way?
Yes. So the first year, I had enough saved from my 1 year of working at
Jamaica?
At Jamaica. I taught high school as well. I taught 5th form math at Holy Childhood. So I started working at Jamaica in the summer, got accepted to medical school on an advanced placement, and they placed me to teach for the year. Started teaching, taught for 1 term. it was very stressful. You imagine as a 19-year-old, because I was 19 at the time, teaching fifth formers who were 16 and 17, some of them.
Difficult
It
for
was
you.
very difficult in terms of discipline, and I had no teacher training.
Right.
You know, so I didn't know. I was bright and I was good at math, but I didn't know how to actually, you know, engage students and have discipline. I would learn how to do lesson plans and so on. But so it was challenging. So after a term, and the pay was better at the hotel, I could stay at the hotel, so I was able to save everything that I earned. And so that actually paid for my first year of medical school.
You know,
and then
I'm happy
alone.
that you're speaking about this like this, because a lot of young people today feel that, okay, once they leave high school, they go straight into university, and they don't understand that sometimes you can take a year off, work some money, and get in. And they become so overwhelmed while they're there because they can't afford to be in university. They don't know where the next cent is coming from, but they're not willing to go out and work, earn some money, and then continue with university.
Yes.
But I know it's not easy.
It's not easy.
No.
And I mean, as I said, for the first 2 years before I started the clinical years, because at the time how the medical program was structured, we had 2 years of preclinical, which was more like anatomy and
Right.
and so on, and then we had the years where we're on the wards, and it was not as easy when you were on the wards to get time. But when we were in preclinical, I would structure my days once I did not have classes, and actually worked. I had jobs while I was in medical school. So I worked at Colgate, and this was in my third year, because I remember meeting a friend in my second year, and she's, you know, I told her I was struggling, and she said, you know, one of her friend's dads is the manager at the Colgate on Spanish Town Road, and they helped me to get a job there. I was a lab technician, so I was working on a shift. So I'd go to school in the morning, medical school, and then I would go and work my shift 2 to 10. I was checking specific gravity of toothpaste, acidity of bleach, and then I would go home on the bus, on the staff bus, at 10 o'clock. And then when I couldn't do that anymore, I got a job at the library. So yes, at the so I learned how do a decimal system. I learned how to place books in the library and so on. So
You are well rounded.
well, you have to do what you have to do, you know.
You know them say, if something fails you, then the other thing you can hang on to. I would think that is what happened in your life.
Yes.
Talk to me about after you graduated and then you decided to go to Canada.
All right, so while I was in medical school, I really got into the field of cardiology. I switched from being interested in cardiac surgery. One, I'm too lazy. People would not believe that. I really do believe in working smarter and not harder. And so when I saw the life that the surgeons were living, because after you do one heart surgery can take you up to 8 hours. You know, sometimes it's a shorter procedure, but it can take up to 8 hours, and then your patients are very, very critical after those 8 hours. You know, they're in intensive care, you can't go very far, and I just did not see that as my lifestyle when I looked at the long term.
Because you have to travel places like Europe and those places, you know.
And also, you know, when I went into the OR, just the physical stamina that it took to, you know, to stand there for the 8 hours under the surgery, as much as I loved it. And then I got exposed to some professors who were really, really bright, you know. And then I really got interested in the investigational side of medicine, because my field is a branch of internal medicine, and we call it the Sherlock Holmes of medicine. So we are the ones who put all the little pieces of the puzzles together. So whenever somebody is trying to figure out what is wrong, has some symptoms, and you can't figure out what is wrong, the internist or the internal medicine specialist is the one. You remember House?
Yes.
People can relate to House, MD, who used to put all the clues together and figure out what's wrong. That's the field of internal medicine. And when I got exposed to the cardiologists, they were so inspiring, so inspirational. and that's what I wanted to do. And one of them actually paved the way for us and established a program as a partnership with University of Toronto. And so that's how I got trained in cardiology. So there is a program that accepts us to come in because, to go to the States or Canada, if you're not trained in their system, you basically have to start over. Not from medical school, but you have to do the board exams. And if, like for me, having already done my degree after, like a postgraduate degree, I would have to do over that entire degree just to do cardiology. Whereas the program that we did in Canada, it was a clinical fellowship that accepted our training, and they trained us to return, basically.
But you spent how long in Canada? 10 years?
No,
or 2?
2 years.
Oh,
yes.
2 years. And
Yes.
then, why did you decide to return to Jamaica?
It was always the plan. I didn't
Yeah,
go
but
to
I
Canada.
mean, you could have always gone elsewhere.
Yes.
You could have stayed. You could have probably gotten married.
It was always the plan, and actually, when I was finished, I got a job offer there at Mount Sinai Hospital. But Cornwall called me. I remember Greg Thomas called and emailed and said, "Dr. Lewis, we need you. There is no cardiologist at this hospital," and he would not let up. And at the time, I was gonna start my another year. I was gonna do a third year, which was a research year. And I said, you know what? I'm actually tired of studying. So I came home 2008 and started at Cornwall, and that was like baptism by fire because it did not, at the time, there was no cardiologist there. There was a cardiologist there who left, and there was a period when there was none, and there was no equipment. All they had was one ECG machine. And I remember we had a little room which is about this size, 14 by 10. I remember the dimensions because I measured it, figuring out what we can put in there, because I was like, we're going to set up a full cardiac unit. This is what we need, so on and so forth. So started off with basically that little room, 14 by 10, with a little ECG machine, and with the support of the hospital CEO at the time, Everton Anderson, and the rest of the team. They bought into the vision, and we got support from the Chase Fund, and we were able to establish a full-fledged cardiac unit with air conditioning, fully equipped with echo, everything. So we were at the time the only public hospital that was offering heart testing, like heart ultrasounds, stress testing, etc. So we would be getting patients from KPH coming in, because the other public hospitals didn't have that. And even at one point, even though University Hospital had their equipment broke down, so some of the patients
would be transferred over here. But how long you spent at Cornwall, and when did you establish Heart Smart Center?
So I was at Cornwall for 10 years, basically from 2008 to 2018. And I started Heart Smart Center as a side hustle, they call these things now. So part-time. So I would go to my practice like 2 afternoons a week, because I was full-time at Cornwall. As a consultant in the government system, they do allow you what they call geographic and non-geographic practice. So you can practice outside of your contract once you maintain your hours at the hospital.
Right.
So I would do 2 afternoons a week at my practice at Heart Smart, and I started this in 2010. And then once I left Cornwall, and then I just went full-time into my private practice in 2018.
And today, it took me weeks upon weeks to convince you that I wanted to sit down and talk with you because of how busy you are. Because there's a need for doctors like yourself. I was extremely proud recently when I saw how well you did with Wear Red Day. When you listened, I would say, to the American Heart Institute, or is it
American Heart Association,
and decided to also bring that awareness that is needed as it relates to heart disease, but in particular, heart disease in women.
Yes.
How important is that for you?
Very important. You know, as a woman cardiologist, and there are fewer of us than there are male cardiologists. It's a very male-dominated field, one. And two, also as someone who has heart disease risk factors, I have high cholesterol, and also I have a family history of high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure on my mom's side, my sisters. And so in terms of risk, I am in a fairly high risk category. And so I thought that, you know, it would be important to highlight the need for, you know, getting regular checkups, knowing, you know, your cholesterol level, knowing your blood pressure, because these are things that you can have and not have any symptoms. You know, of course, when people have symptoms, they will get checked up. But I wanted to raise the awareness that you want to get checked up even before you have any symptoms, because there are quite a few heart conditions that you can have that do not bring symptoms. So I wanted to really raise awareness about that, and make it relatable as well. And also to kind of, you know, people look at me and they say, oh, she's skinny, or I used to be skinny, and they think, you know, she looks healthy. You don't know somebody's state of health just by looking at them.
No, you don't.
And you don't know your own state of health. You know, patients come to me all the time, oh, me know my pressure high. No, you do not. You know, by the time you start to feel something, it is too late. You know, you get the headache, you're probably having a stroke, a bleed, or something like that. So, you know, really it's about getting people to be aware and to be tuned into their bodies and to be comfortable just getting checked up.
You know, I'm looking forward to us playing tennis, because I believe that is one of the ways that you de-stress.
Yes, and also keep fit.
So let's go play tennis.
All right, sounds like a plan. Cheers.
Cheers! You have been watching West Side JA. We'll be right back.
All memorable moments include delicious food. Good food can transform the ordinary into extraordinary. We welcome more good times together, more memories we won't forget.
Rainforest always, I make delicious moments.
Let's bounce some ball, eh? You know, I have not been on a tennis court for maybe 20 years. So
Really?
this morning, please forgive me, because I know I'm not going to do so well. But
Are you coming out here looking like Venus Williams? Come on now, girl.
I feel like Venus. I feel like Venus. I'm going to give you the Serena part, because I know that you are a Serena fan and that you go all over the world go watch tennis. So, you know. But me I go like Venus. Venus are the one who wanna play so well.
No, they both play very well. What are you talking about? My girl. You're talking about professional tennis here, you know. So Venus, you know, she's older now, so she's not as good as when she was younger, but
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Venus, if you're hearing, me apologize.
Please
will
and
go
thank
on over
you.
your side.
Alrighty. To you. Alright. Yeah. Don't put it at your foot though, Jan. Put it. You put it at your foot, you might step on it and have an accident. Good job. I've got one more. Janet.
You have one? Oh.
There's a secret place where they go.
Okay, all right.
Good. What? What, Janet? You're killing me, man. I have more.
Yeah, there are more.
Are you done?
Yes.
No, Janet. We need to work on your exercise. We need to work on your exercise tolerance. Let me grab up my balls and I'll make my way over to you. How was your tennis game, Jan?
Oh my God, it was great, except I'm not the break.
Are you exercising, Janet?
I am exercising,
But
I'm
what
not
are you
exercising.
doing? You're not doing cardio.
Not doing enough cardio.
Because if you were doing cardio, this little something that we did here would not finish you like that.
I need to do more cardio. A cardio? It's cardio.
But I find most people who go to the gym, they focus on weightlifting and
not
resistance
focusing on the
training.
right thing. True.
And they're not doing the cardio and they think that they're fit.
It's true.
And then you come out to this little test
And
now.
then we realize how unfit we are.
Very much so. Very
We've
much
been
so.
watching West Side JA. It has been a pleasure. Catch you on the inside.